These are the three biggest decisions anybody has to make regarding retirement. I'm coming up on 12 months being retired myself. And prior to that, I was a retirement advisor for over 20 years. So I've been on both sides of the table, both as a coach and an advisor, as well as a participant in down on the field. So, the first question, which is probably the most difficult, is when do you retire? At what age? And for many people, they think it's a financial question, and it is a financial question, but it's also an emotional question. And so I'm just going to toss out there, I think it's helpful for many of us to have a trigger that we say, when we reach this amount of money, we're going to retire, or when I reach this age, maybe I just say, what I have is good enough. So that's the outcome. But let me peel back the onion and tell you how I got there. So, for a lot of younger folks in their 20s or 30s, it may sound weird that one of the toughest retirement decisions is when to retire. But after doing something for 20, 30, 40 years of our lives, our career becomes ingrained in part in our identity. And if we're not careful, we can inadvertently and unnecessarily give up the youth of our senior years, those years in retirement where we could have done all these things that we wanted to do that once you reach a certain age become much harder. And that's why I like this idea of having two triggers. And one of those is an age, and whether you're 30 or 40 years old or you're in your 50s or 60s, you can think about that now. At what point would you say, you know what? I want to make sure I have 10 years of healthy, active time in retirement. And so even if I'm not fully at my financial goal, I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to adjust things so that I can, I'll be flexible. I'm going to adjust things so I can retire and I can enjoy that youth of my senior years, that first 5 to 10 years of retirement. So that's the age trigger. And then, of course, there's a financial trigger. Now, none of this is financial advice. I'm not saying that, if you hit that age trigger, you should just retire regardless of how much money you have. This isn't financial advice. I don't know your situation, but I'm just encouraging you to think about including an age side of things, because the challenge with our bank account is it's easy for us to measure, and so we can over index there. And could you be flexible to allow yourself to retire sooner? So again, that's the first one. Frankly, I've led with the most challenging one, the one that I see people struggle with the most. Sorry, there's a cat behind me that decided to bite me. Uh, but so I've seen people have challenges with that. And one way to get over that challenge is to have a financial plan, to come up with a financial plan. So you know where you're at on your plan, whether you're getting close, how far away you are from your plan. And the gold standard, here's the kitty. You can see the kitty here. Lift up your head just a little bit. The gold standard, of course, is to work with a financial advisor. And I know many people in my audience aren't going to do that. It can be expensive to work with a financial advisor, particularly one that's a fiduciary to you 100% of the time. If that's you, if you never see yourself paying 1% a year of the assets that your advisor's managing for you, if you don't see paying for it or you don't see yourself trusting somebody else, I urge you still to come up with a financial plan, but not to use Excel, not to use Google Sheets, to use software that's designed for you. And the software that I like is called Bolden. It used to be called New Retirement. You can reach Bolden in the description below, and you'll be supporting the channel and this little cute kitty here, Cosmo. Okay, so that's the first one, is the age and the amount of money at which that you're going to retire. The second question is how much to spend. How much are you going to allow yourself to spend? And this is a really important decision. Again, you need to have a plan, because without a plan, you're just guessing. You could say, okay, I'm going to spend, I'm just making up numbers. I was making $75,000 a year before. I was spending $60,000 a year. So now I'm going to spend $50,000, where you don't know. Are you unnecessarily sacrificing? Could you be spending more money? You don't know without a plan. Or might you be putting your financial security in the future at risk? So I want you to have confidence. I want you to have peace of mind. I want you to be able to retire with what I call without worry and have as much confidence and peace of mind as possible. So how much are you going to spend is a really important question. At a minimum, if you're not going to work with a financial advisor to come up with this, a lot of accountants can help you with that. Or again, if you want to build your own plan, the software I like is called Bolden, description below. But I really want you to do that because you've worked way too hard to unnecessarily sacrifice, and you've worked way too hard to put your financial future at risk. So that's question number two. The third question, and stick to the end because I'm going to give you a bonus that I think is not as tough as number one, but it's a close second. Um, and so the third thing is, how are you going to spend your time, right? Um, there's always ways to make more money. There's never ways to make more time. And so being able to hit the ground running and doing the things that you want to do when you first retire, I think is really important. It's not uncommon for people to take a couple years to figure out what they're going to do with their time. But I really encourage you to think about it ahead of time so that you capture those first 2 years. I want you to think if you're 60 years old, unfortunately, most of us have 1,000 weeks or less of healthy active time. So, 2 years is 100 weeks of that. That is 10% of that 1,000 weeks, and it's probably the 10% where you're going to be the healthiest and the most active. So, give some thought. But I want to encourage you that you don't have to have something that you're going to do 40 hours a week just to retire. I've seen that keep people from pursuing their goals. I've seen that keep people from retiring. They'll say, "Hey, Azul, I don't know what I'm going to do with my time, and I can't think of anything that would be more enjoyable than working." And if that's really, really true, there are people that, you know what? It's fine to never retire, but I think that's the vast minority of us. And I think many, many people regret that decision later. So I want you to really be honest with yourself. Are you staying at work because you love your job, or are you staying at work because it can be scary to take this leap into the unknown? And I also want to encourage you, I think it's okay to retire, even if you don't know what you're going to do to replace the 40 hours that you were at work. I think it's really healthy to have something that you think you're going to be passionate about for 10 to 20 hours a week, but that's enough to start. And it's like a seed. Once you plant that seed and you nurture that seed, from there, lots of good stuff can come from it. So having that first 10 to 20 hours, I think, is enough to begin the journey. And from there, good things will come from how you're spending that 10 to 20 hours. I said that there was going to be one more that I think is even more important. It's also going to be controversial, so please be kind in the comments. And that is the fourth thing is, who are you going to spend your time with? And and, if you're married, hopefully you have got a solid marriage and you're looking forward to sharing that time with your spouse. It is important that the two of you are on the same page as to what retirement looks like. And then who, as far as your friends, are you going to spend your time with? Because it's just by the time we get to be 50 or 60, by the time we get to retire, it's super easy to have a spectrum of friends. And unfortunately, some of those friends may not be uplifting us anymore. Some of those friends may be a negative, not a positive influence in our life. And I would encourage you to think about weeding those out into limiting how many people in that category that you allow into your life, because you deserve to have people around you that are helping you become the best version of yourself, that are lifting you up. And you also deserve freedom from people that are bringing you down, are jealous, or are draining energy from you. If you enjoyed this video, I think another video similar to my fourth point that I just made that you'll enjoy is this one here that talks about 8 things to stop doing in your 50s and 60s in order to enjoy your journey more. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.